Well, hello my friends, it's Shawn Petite and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Look at this happiness full of love piece. Here are the supplies that we'll be using today. So I'm starting my project on a 12 by 12 MDF board that has been gessoed, and I'm putting down some wonderful vintage papers, a new collage pack in the shop that will be on sale this week. Oh, they are so yummy. But I'm just starting with papers, not really sure exactly where this is going to go yet at this point, but just starting with some really good grungy yummy papers. I'm putting all of that down with my Liquitex matte medium and get a good coat on top and on bottom for both of those. And all of the supplies will be listed on the blog, and the link to the blog will be down below in the YouTube description box. This piece of paper here, oh, I just love it. It's like it's an old envelope that's just flat and kind of disintegrated, and oh, it's just so good. I love vintage papers. They make me happy. So I'm just kind of grabbing some of the best parts of that sheet and putting it down someplace where I think that it might show well and bring some interest and some of that writing, that vintage writing, there's nothing like it, into the piece. All of the stencils that I use today will also be on sale this week. And so you'll notice that I'm kind of offsetting the pattern, some high and some low, just to add some interest in that kind of thing. So now I'm going to try and soften some of those edges and just kind of push that back just a tiny bit. I don't want to do too much because I know that I'm going to have some layers on top of that. And I'm using gesso and beige or Titan Buff, if you have Titan Buff. And I'm using Lucas acrylic paints. Or Lucas acrylic paint for this step for the beige, and then I use some raw umber in there and some gesso. And I grabbed my brayer because I really wanted it to feel kind of abstract and a little grungy, and the brayer can kind of soften out that paint and really kind of blend it together, and I love the look of it. So I can kind of get a little bit on my brush and kind of take it down the page a little bit just to kind of soften some of those hard edges of the paper, and then just kind of, you know, blend everything together and push those papers back just a tiny bit. I'm getting this ready for all of the layers that are to come, all of the wonderful color that we'll be working with. Getting some raw umber around the edges. I love this look, how it mixes with the brayer, how it mixes with the gesso and the paint. It just makes me happy. So grungy, good, yum. I could have stopped right here and been completely happy with it. I love how this background looks. I love it. So this is a simple, easy background for any project. So now that it's all dry, I've pulled out a variety of acrylic inks that I'll be using, and I'm on this kick. You know how you go in kicks of trying new things? This is the thing I'm into right now, is some acrylic inks. I'm loving how I can get them to water down and really layer, and I love the look and how they dry. They dry so transparent so that those papers and things can show through, and I love that. So this is teal. I'll have all the supplies listed. Then I add a little bit of golden high flow in there. And you can see the difference between the two, between the acrylic ink and the high flow. The high flow, while it's wonderful and it really moves, it's not as transparent. And so I kind of pick that up with my rag just a little bit to kind of pull some of that up, because I really want that transparency, so that the under layer kind of shows through. And so I'm just going to continue to add my colors, and I've chosen colors that work well together, that play well together, and mix well together. So I've got the teal, and this is a violet, a deep violet color. And these are actually, some are Liquitex and some are Dr. Phil Martin's acrylic inks. And again, those will be listed as well. Pulled out a little bit of high flow because this is quinacridone magenta, and it is my favorite color. But I really needed to give it a lot of water so that it would be a little bit more transparent, like the acrylic inks. And adding that yellow to that quinacridone magenta and to that violet, oh, it makes the prettiest color, and it just makes me happy. And then you'll see when I add that yellow to the turquoise, I get some of that green, and all of those colors just work so well together. And I pulled out a little bit of, this is called Indigo from Dr. Phil Martin acrylic inks. And putting those together with some of the purple and some of the teal, they mix so well together, and those edges kind of all get yummy and mixed. And I'm trying to make sure that I balance out the colors and bring them up to the top or the bottom of the 12 by 12, so that it doesn't feel like it's floating out there, but that it feels like it's all one, it's all part. And extending things out to the edge makes me feel, at least, like it is part of a whole piece. And I feel like it also helps it balances it out. But that blue that mixes with the violet and with the magenta and with some of the teal, oh my gosh, it's just so fun. It's like a big giant experiment. So now that I've got all of the colors down and they're dry, I want to get a little bit of pattern on there and push some of that back so that I can prepare for my word and my flower, and to kind of add a little bit of interest to the piece, because really it's pretty basic at this point. But adding the Moroccan tile pattern, and I'm using a very, very dry brush with some gesso, very dry, and really working it in there, and it's very transparent when I pull up the stencil, and it's allowing those colors to show through, but with the white on top of it, it lightens the color. And so it just turned out perfectly. It was very subtle and soft, and allowed me to get some pattern on there without taking away from the wonderful color and the papers that are already there. So I have sketched out onto my wood here the word love, and I'm in this space where my creative juices are flowing, and I have all these ideas and not enough time to do everything. But I wanted to do a word that was different than what I had typically done. And I don't think I've ever done a word like this going vertically. And I love how it turned out. Of course, I use the word love. But yeah, I loved it. And so you could print a word on tissue paper if you wanted to, but I couldn't get one big enough to really, because I wanted it to go all the way top to bottom. And so there's a lot of ways that you could write out a word without actually having to use your own handwriting. So you can be creative that way. And I'm just using carbon black acrylic paint to paint that on. And then I'm using, this is a Messy Flowers stencil in black. And once I stencil this out, I will add to it. I will make the stencil work for me. I use my stencil as my guide. And so I wanted it again to be taller. So I will add to the bottom and add to the top on bits and pieces of the stencil. So you can see I'm adding little bits here and there to it. And then I'll come back in with my brush and I begin to start filling in all the blank spaces so that it feels more painted and not so stenciled. You can see how I added to the stencil at the top. I just added a few more of those buds, and then I'm again connecting them and adding some extra little vines and things to really customize that stenciled image so that it doesn't look so stenciled. Now I have printed out my quote, my verse, and it's probably you're probably very familiar with it. And I do share about it at the end because it is really what inspired this piece. And I do hope you stick around for that conversation because it's for you. It's just for you. I printed out that quote in 2 different sizes because I wasn't sure. So I used the other words that I printed out on tissue paper as part of the background. And so I put those down. And once I put them down, I didn't want them to feel like they were just stuck on top. You'll see here in just a second where I'll come back and I'm starting to stencil just a tiny bit over them just to push them back so that they don't feel so in your face and on top of everything, so that they feel integrated with the rest of the piece. And again, I'm just using some gesso. So I wanted there in the stencil, the Messy Flower stencil, it had these little splatters and I love them. So I wanted some more. So I grabbed the splatters stencil and added some more just fun. And I wanted the splatters to be really controlled. That's why I used the stencil because I could choose the pattern and the shapes. And so I used that stencil to just kind of add a few little fun spots here and there. I'm using some acrylic ink in sepia around the edges just to add a bit of that, to bring back a bit of that kind of grunginess that was in the very first layer. Just a tiny bit. I won't do a whole bunch here. So I needed some additional black in the piece on the edges to kind of help this feel balanced and finished for me, for my eye. And so I grabbed the Paris Flourish stencil and I used pan pastels. And I chose pan pastels because I wanted it to be super soft. I didn't want it to be as bold as the actual word and the flower. So I used the pan pastels and it was perfect. Then I shaded around the edge with my pan pastels, and now I'm inspired to do more with pan pastels. But that is it, my friends. I hope you enjoyed today's project, and if you did, subscribe and like and share and all those wonderful things, and stick around for the conversation at the end. It's a good one. It really is just for you. So I hope you enjoyed today's project, and I will see you next week. Well, hello, my friends, and happy Sunday to you. Look at this happiness. I just love how this turned out. I was not sure how this was going to go. I knew that I wanted to do something different with my wording, and I just love how this turned out. So really quick, before I dive into this, I went over everything throughout the video, but a couple things really quick. There's still time, when you see this, there'll still be time. If you are interested at all in the creative team, there's still time to submit, but check it out right away, because you'll only have, once you see this, a day or so. If you're interested in becoming part of the creative team or submitting, to see if you would make the creative team, you still have time for that. And then I believe there's still time for the early bird special, or early bird pricing for the new Journal Journey workshop. So, but those are only like another day or two after you see this video. So jump on that if you are at all interested. And then the stencils will be on sale that I use this week. And then there's a new collage pack in the shop. And I don't have all of the paper, but the really yummy goodness papers that I put down originally, there's vintage, like old falling apart envelopes and some really cool, just stained and yummy good papers. So that will be on sale this week. Even though it's new, it'll be on sale since I used it in today's piece. And let's see, what else? I think that's it. I'm trying to think. Oh, one other thing too. If you are familiar at all with the Enneagram, and some of you might not be, it's a personality type test typing tool kind of person. It's like if you're an INTJ, it kind of helps you define or get some information on your personality type. And I love the Enneagram. It's really it goes in depth a little bit more than some of the other personality types, and I love that kind of stuff anyway. And my son is actually a certified Enneagram coach. And so I have the benefit of having him come in, and he's coached our staff here, and it just really helps us understand how we respond, how we communicate, those kinds of things. Anyway, that's a long story to get to where I was going. I did a bunch of prints based on the Enneagram, each type. I'm a type 5, based on each type, and their kind of their personality and what their heart longs to hear. And that's one of the things I love about the Enneagram. It talks about what we long to hear and how we kind of overcompensate or do different things within our world to end up getting what our heart longs to hear. So anyway, I did some prints that are now available in the shop, and I'll have a link to that either down below or actually on the blog, because the link to the blog is where you'll find all the stencils and sale and all that stuff. So that'll be down below in the YouTube description box. Okay, so Enneagram prints, workshop, creative team, good to go. Okay. So this piece came together, it has one of my favorite quotes, scriptures. The love is patient, love is kind. I mean, I think everybody, even if we share different faiths, are familiar with that quote, that scripture. And so that was running in my head just because I just feel like, man, we need some serious love everywhere. People are tired of having the COVID. They're struggling with all the injustice and different things like that, and everyone's like on this heightened, I can't even really explain it. There's so much uncertainty. It's just, it's hard and heavy sometimes. Not always, but sometimes it is. And that's right now. And then just in general, if we didn't have to deal with all of the other things that are happening in the world, life is just sometimes hard. And it makes me want to just hug everybody, and we can't hug anybody right now. So I just started thinking about love and how much love changes things. And of course, I went to this scripture, this quote. And I'm like, well, and then I went back again to another, love thy neighbor as thyself. Love God with all your heart and love thy neighbor as yourself. And I kept thinking, why can't we just love each other? And we don't have to agree on things. I know I have a very simplistic view of things. We don't have to agree on everything, but we can love and respect each other for our differences, for our upbringings. We can love and respect each other for all of those things. And then as I started to think about that more, I thought, love your neighbor as yourself. And I think sometimes we don't often think that ourselves are worthy of love. So how easy is it to give love when we don't feel like we are worthy of love or able to receive love or all that stuff? I mean, there's just so many layers as I dove into the love part of everything. And so what I want to say is that you are worthy of love. You are so worthy of so many wonderful things, and you are loved. You're not just worthy, but you are loved. You're loved by so many, and sometimes we forget that. And for me, I believe that you are loved by a higher power, a creator. And I know we all have different faiths and beliefs too, but I do believe that you are loved. Just as you are, flaws and all, you are loved. And then when we understand that love, that we are loved, that we are worthy, it's so much easier to give love, to show love, to see love around us, to see others in this place of love, even if we disagree, even if we don't always understand, even if to be able to see that person in love and in respect. And we just need a whole lot more of that. And so this says, and I'll read it, and I'm sure you know it, love is patient, love is kind. Love does not envy, it does not boast, it's not proud, it's not rude, it's not self-seeking, it's not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrong. Oh man, love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. And this is the ideal, and no one is perfect. No one is perfect at loving and doing the right things and seeing things the right way. No one is. But if we can start from a place of love, a place of loving ourselves and then loving others, I just think so much would change. So much would change. And so today I want you to know how much you are loved. You are loved so much. You're so valuable and so worthwhile and worthy, and all of your things and stuff and quirks and all the things that we all have, they're all loved just as you are. Okay, lovies, that is it, my message of love. I hope you enjoyed today's project, because it was for you, so that you know how much you are loved. Have a wonderful Sunday.